before the sermon, we'd like to invite all the young children to come on forward and gather with the bishop, and any parents who want to hold their hands. He's pretty scary, I know.
To myself as well. Good morning. Okay, so where do you normally gather? Up here on the steps. Okay, go ahead. Have a seat. Good morning. Good morning. Epiphany, we're going to talk about it. Epiphany is what Father Stephen called the feast that was Friday. The church has certain days that they call feasts, and Christmas is one, Easter's another one, and Epiphany's another one. And Epiphany was such a big deal for...
Easter is when the Easter bunny comes to your house and hides Easter eggs in whatever eggs you find has candy inside the eggs.
And do you find the eggs? That's great. To throw the eggs through the basketball hoop. That's a new custom. So the eggs will open, and all the candy will scatter all over, and then you can pick it up. I love this idea. Does the tooth fairy come to you as well? Nope. I'm sorry I mentioned it.
Lost it too.
Yes. Are you showing me your cross?
Yeah.
It's beautiful. And you... Oh, it came off. We can fix that. Or someone can. Well, Epiphany means showing forth. And it's the idea... Why was it so big in the early church? It was bigger than Christmas. People give gifts at Christmas because of the Feast of the Epiphany. When the wise people brought their gifts to Jesus, this is how we got the idea of Christmas gifts. And people didn't really do much at Christmas. They did more at Epiphany. It was more important to them than Christmas was. So I think it's a question that we might ask ourselves, like, why? Why was it so important? And I think that it was so important because the wise people, and I'm saying wise people because we don't know they were all men. They might have been women and men. They might have been people. Well, they were people. They had an idea about who Jesus was. They already had an idea that he was a king. He was born to be a king. And they had ideas about what a king was like. So their gifts were traditional gifts. They were the gifts that were normally given to a king. Gold and frankincense, not myrrh, but gold and frankincense. You got it back on. Good job. Gold and frankincense were gifts that were brought to present to an earthly king, a king that we would recognize. And they found something they did not recognize. They found a baby who was born to parents who were poor and who didn't have a palace. They didn't live in a castle or a palace. They lived in a normal house, a house like we might live in. And they were a family, like our families, not like a royal family. And yet, these wise people had the ability. They were the kind of people who didn't hold on to their own ideas so tightly that they couldn't see something new. So they were able to come partly because God sent this star. And the star had never been seen before. So these were like astronomers. They watched the sky. And the word planet, do you know the word planet?
Yes.
Is the Earth?
Yes.
You're right. Is Pluto a planet?
No, he's a dwarf planet.
Masi Menos, right. Yeah, unfortunately, Pluto was a planet when I was a child. It's been demoted. But the word planet means wanderer, because the planets are not like the stars. They follow strange paths through the sky. So people like the Magi, these wise people, they didn't have telescopes, but there was no light pollution in those days, and they could see the stars. The stars were brighter then, and they followed them. They had very precise charts that they could know where stars were and where the planets moved across the sky. They were aware of all that. And suddenly there was a star that they had never seen before. I met with your vestry just a little while ago before the service, and I told them there's a comet coming. Do you know about this comet?
No.
I didn't learn about it until a few days ago. It's green. It has not been seen near the Earth since there were Neanderthal, another kind of humans that have not lived on the earth for 50,000 years.
Cave people?
They were cave people. They were cave people. So the next time that you will see this comet, well, we won't. It will be another 50,000 years. So this comet is kind of like this star that the wise people saw. It had never been seen before. Yes? More greats than that. But yes, that's the idea. Almost that. Okay, that. Yes. And a few more greats. So this star, they kept star charts. And they looked, and it said, oh, this star has a meaning. So they weren't just looking at the stars for fun. They were looking to understand the universe. And this star was predicted, and it meant that a new king for the Jews was being born. So Judaism was a religion of the world, and they knew about Judaism. And they went and they followed this star to go greet a new king. But yet, when they got there, they found this little baby didn't seem like a king at all. And yet, they loved this baby. And God changed them. God changed them through God's love through Jesus. The love of God through Jesus changed the wise people. And they went home by another route. Now, the gospel that Reverend Will read to us, that he proclaimed, says they went to another route because an angel warned them in a dream not to go back to King Herod, because Herod was afraid of this baby, because he's going to be the new king. He's replace Herod. So that would make somebody scared. I can understand that. But in the early church, when Epiphany was such a big deal, they understood this going home by another route differently. They thought it was not just to avoid Herod, but because their lives had changed. They were going back another way because they were no longer the same. They had been changed by Jesus. So I think Epiphany was such a big deal because all of us are like the wise people. We have a chance to come and meet Jesus and become different. Yes?
Why was Christmas not that important if Jesus was born on Christmas?
The question was, why was Christmas not as big a deal if Jesus was born on Christmas? Well, this was the feast when they celebrated his birth, right? But when the wise people came to see him, it was all like one big package. It was the birth and the visit by the angels and the shepherds and the wise people. Just like the pageant. Do you do a pageant here?
I did one last.
Yeah, and everybody's there, right? All at the same time. The wise people, everybody kind of ends up at the same place. You have animals too?
No, I wasn't.
You were an animal? Which one were you? You were a sheep. I'm inspired to that. So that's why. That's why. They did it all like at the pageant. It was all like that. So the rest of the next few weeks leading up to Ash Wednesday and Lent, where we start getting ready for Easter, those weeks following Epiphany, we have a chance as a church, all of us, to make this journey of discovery, where we take our expectations about who we are and what the world is like, and we bring them to Jesus, and we find out what the reality is through Jesus. So the first one is the Epiphany, where we visit the baby Jesus and discover that a king is not like the world thinks kings are. Instead, a king is more like a shepherd. This is what we learn. So that instead of ruling us and dominating us and having power over us, the shepherd is one who protects and makes sure that we have food and water, nurtures us and cares for us. So that's the first thing we learn. But over the next few weeks, we're going to have other meetings with Jesus where our expectations get changed by meeting the reality of who Jesus is. And we'll meet, if it were not the visit of the wise people today, we would be looking at the baptism of Jesus when he's baptized by John. And we also will see him healing people. And we'll see him turning water into wine. And we'll see him on a mountain with 3 of his closest friends where he is changed and his appearance becomes shining and full of light. Each one of these things teaches us something new about who is Jesus. Do you have your hand up? No? Okay. About who Jesus is and who we might become. The last thing is, again, in that very, very early church, so many great back before, one theologian said that each one of us is asked to follow a star, just like the wise people. But it's not a star in the sky. It's a star that appears in our hearts and leads us deeper into ourselves, into who we really are, so that we discover in our hearts the birth of Jesus and these other encounters with Jesus and are changed in that way. So I would like to invite you to think about Epiphany and this time after the Epiphany as your invitation to follow the star, to go deeper into your own life, your own identity, and ask yourself, is my identity who I am? Is it founded on who God is? On the love of God for you? Or is it founded on something else? I often respond to other things, fear, hopes, desires, instead of what changes the world and makes the world what it is, which is the love of God. And then the final thing is that journey that you're invited to take to follow the star is not an individual journey alone. There is no account of the visit of the wise people that has just one coming. Some early pictures of the wise people visiting have 2. Most have 3. Why do you think they have 3? Why do you think they show 3 wise people visiting? This is the first question I've asked you. Well, think about it just a second. Did they bring presents?
Yes.
How many presents did they bring?
3.
3. So people thought if they brought 3 presents, there were probably 3 people. But it doesn't say that. It says they brought 3 presents, and those were the traditional presents for a king. So the Syrians, in present-day Syria, they have always said there were 12 12 wise people. And when we have the pageant, like you had the pageant here, when we have it at Grace Cathedral, your cathedral, we invite as many children as show up, sometimes over 100, to put on costumes. We have racks of costumes. There is a rehearsal, kind of. But basically, you get to be whatever you want to be. So we have a whole bunch of angels, we have a whole bunch of shepherds, and we have a whole lot of magi. And they all are there. Yes?
They never said that all of them brought presents.
That's right. They never said they all brought presents. So I go with that. I think there may have been 12 or more. And they were men and women and people. So the point of that is that this is our journey. It's a journey as a community. It's your journey as a person, my journey as a person, but it's also our journey as people of God. We're on a journey together. I've been so inspired to hear about the warming shelter and how you've stepped up when the city of Alameda was not even aware that it was going to do this, and you brought awareness back to the city, and you made partnerships with different groups, and you have been, even though your plan was to house people 3 days a week because of this, the atmospheric rivers and the cyclone bombs, meaning real misery for unhoused people, you've been housing people every day. This is a common journey that we have together as people. And so let's see how we can follow the star of God's love together and find a way to become who God dreams us to be in our lives. Does that sound like a good idea to you?
Yes.
It does to me too. So let's say there's a Hebrew word that means may it be so, and that word is amen. Can we say that together? Amen. Okay, thank you. Do you stay up here for the rest of the service? I don't know. I don't know either. Probably not, is my guess. Okay, see you in a few minutes.